My relationship with my dad was non-existent really growing up. I didn't have one. He was emotionally absent. He didn't care to spend time with us, do anything with us. Like, he never had a meal. I don't remember him having meals with us. He was angry. He was mean. I didn't love him. I actually remember saying that I hated him, and I didn't like when he would come home. I hated seeing his car pull up in the driveway. Because I didn't feel love from my dad, I would start looking to older men. And so I met Mike, and he's 8 years older than me. And he just was somebody who was stable and who seemed nice. And so I met him, and I married him. And he reminded me a lot of my dad. They have a lot of the same personality. And so I would see a lot of things in Mike that I saw in my dad. And so I started really, really hating that side of him. Those feelings were just all inside. I kept them inside. And I think just burying those things added to the depression, the fighting, the arguing, the unhappiness, the feeling unloved, the feeling lonely. I think all of those things just added to it. And that's it got to a point where I just didn't want to be there anymore. And so we separated. 2008, it was a Friday, and I was with my dad. Mike and I were separated, and we were at home. My dad left to go fishing and came back a short while later, and it was maybe 10 minutes later, and I kind of made a comment to him about him not being gone long, and he just broke down crying, and I knew something was wrong. And that's when he told me that my brother had called him and told him that my youngest brother was murdered. Randall was living with a roommate, and she started dating this guy who was a part of a gang, and it just wasn't a good situation anymore, so he wanted to move out. And so he came to get his stuff, and the guy felt like he was disrespected. And so after Randall left, they all devised this plan to rob him. They came around the house and surrounded the house and just basically ambushed him. And he went running off like everybody did. Everybody went running when the gun came out. And the gunman went after him and shot him in the back. He died a few hours later at the hospital. The trial was torture, especially for my parents. I felt horrible for my parents. They taunted, they made it a point to stare at us and smirk. They literally sat in on his autopsy and laughed and snickered at the photos that the medical examiner was showing. I mean, it was just pure evilness in my opinion. And I hated them. They did everything that they could to make it a more horrible experience, as if you can make the murder trial of your brother any worse. Both accusers were found not guilty. They were acquitted of the murder. As soon as that verdict was read, I immediately left. I just walked out, and I'm being pushed by family members who are jumping up and down and rejoicing and are happy and who are screaming in the hallways. And I'm sitting in the corner of a hallway just crying. And I just remember my uncle coming out and comforting me because I just felt so mad. I was angry, and I hated them. So I started inner healing that same year, later on in that year. And forgiveness was a big issue for me because I felt like as long as I held on to unforgiveness, then I held on to a piece of myself and a piece of my brother. I felt that I was justified by holding on to unforgiveness because I wouldn't let anybody hurt me anymore as long as I held on to that. And then I was saying that what all of these people had done over the years in my life, my dad, the issues that I had with my husband, and then my brother's killers, I felt justified holding on to this. And if I let it go, then it would mean that what they did was right. But I believe inner healing and then going to the inner healing classes that Bow Down has put on over the years have equipped me to be able to walk out the steps of inner healing or walk out the steps of forgiveness in such a powerful way. I'm able to teach my kids now how to walk in forgiveness, how that's a continual thing, and how at the end of the day, we need to be able to look at the cross and realize that we have been forgiven of so much, of so much. So we have no business holding on to unforgiveness of what other people have done to us. It's freedom. It's freedom, and it's brought freedom to my life in so many different areas. So my dad and I have a great relationship now. My dad came to me and asked for forgiveness. He actually took the first step, and he came to me first and apologize and ask for forgiveness for everything that he had done, I have like this honor and respect towards my dad that I've never had before. And I love it. I love that I can love him and honor him and respect him and want to be around him.